that was a warning to all of us. That was the police saying to us, you'll do as you're told, otherwise we're going to be complicit in your assassination.
So we're now spending 65 billion a year on sickness benefits.
Yeah. We advertise on the official government website what you're entitled to when you get here. Free education, free dental care, free NHS. You'll get money for this. We advertise it as if we have to tell them.
Like it's a bloody tourism
Yes.
thing. 52% of Gen Z think the UK would be a better place with a strong leader in charge who doesn't have to bother with Parliament and elections. Ladies and gentlemen, if you found us, welcome to The Resistance. And this is The Mayor and I, episode 78.
Yep.
With I, Nick Buckley.
Oh, are you Nick Buckley now? Yeah. That's nice of you. Do I get your car?
I'm now bewildered. With I, Lindsay Khan, and Nick Buckley, MBE. It's like a picture of Dorian Gray, isn't it? And it's a weekly chat, and today is the 5th of Feb, I think it is, and it's a weekly chat about what's happening in the world, our views on it, and our complaining and whining about it, and achieving absolutely nothing by talking about it, as one of our gentle listeners kindly pointed out.
But trying to present some solutions as well.
Trying
to present.
We're trying in our own.
We are trying.
Sorry, Nick Buckley, welcome to The Mayor and I.
Thank you.
And you're at 32,000 subscribers now.
We are. It went up a couple of days ago. It went over 32,000. It's still going up. I'm a few hundred now away from 50,000 subscribers on Twitter.
Fantastic.
Almost hitting 50,000 on there.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive. The last episode, you were pretty angry about the police. We were talking about the Quran burning in Manchester, and you're involved in that with the Free Speech Union to try and do something to help this guy. And I noticed a shift in your demeanour in terms of the establishment. We've always been pretty anti-government in this show, but I think you're hardening now, aren't you, Nick, a bit around all this?
I am, especially with the police. I've spent years making excuses for the police, Greater Manchester Police, and that's because I know many of the officers. I've worked with them in police stations when I was based in police stations for the council. I've trained police officers, I've devised patrol plans, I've devised projects. I've worked with the police on and off for 20 years, and I don't have a problem with the vast majority of the lower ranks frontline staff. But I think I've had it now with the senior police officers. They're not on our side. I think they're political appointments now, and they're just pushing the narrative that gets them promoted, and the ones who believe in it get promoted. They're turning into the enemy, and I don't say that lightly. They're turning. I can't after the weekend when they arrested that guy, which I don't agree with. But then to release his name, date of birth and where he lives, knowing there's jihadists out there who are going to want to kill him, it's like, that was a warning to all of us. That was the police saying to us, you'll do as you're told, otherwise we're going to be complicit in your assassination. You'll do as you're told.
You also see a number of episodes, and we've seen it over the last couple of years, the Hare Hills riots, where nobody was arrested. During the actual Southport riots, where we found that any Muslims were found carrying knives and weapons, and the police just told them to take them back to their mosques and go, rather than arresting them or whatever. The two-tier policing we've seen during the Southport riots, people arrested for tweets. We talked about Joey Barton being arrested by the police for tweets again. And then this issue with the Quran, and you start to realise you have a very corrupt, a very polarised police force who are acting against the interests of a lot of native British people in this country.
They are. I'm still not sure if it's by design or if it's cowardice. And either way, I don't care what the answer is. I don't care. I'm looking at the results. Is it by design? And I think partly it is by design, but it's also cowardice. The police in this country now are scared stiff of civil disturbances and riots. And what they're saying to themselves is, oh crap, we've got a guy burning the Quran in Manchester city centre. We need to arrest him. Not because he's a problem, but because if we get 50, 200 Islamic nutjobs in the city centre now rioting and killing people, we're going to be held responsible for that. Their job isn't necessarily to prevent civil disturbances. Their job is to enforce the law. And if the law states you can burn the Quran because you own that copy, then you should be able to burn it.
Yeah.
The police's job is to deal with the reaction to that and crack some heads and tell other people in this country we have freedom of speech. We have freedom of expression. You can burn, if you own something and you're not a danger to someone else by burning it in a building and stuff like that. But he was outside in the open air. And that's an acceptable way of demonstrating and protesting in this country.
Yeah.
And we're not willing for us to run our police force by being afraid of bullies on the streets.
Yeah. And if they were concerned there would be a reaction to that, then the job of the police in that situation is to go there and defend that man. As he stands there burning the Quran, they should be forming, and if there's a group of jihadists who are trying to destroy our ability to have free speech and free expression in this country, they should have formed a protective ring around him to stop those people doing that.
Exactly.
But instead, they arrested him. Because I think the problem is now the police are not upholding the law in this country. They're upholding the ideology of the government.
Yes.
The ideology of the what we call the Uni Party. The Conservatives, Labour, the same thing. They've been promoting this ideology now for nearly 2 decades, and that's all the police are there to do now, basically.
Yeah, and they're afraid of disturbances, and part of this is because we've got far too many woke people and women in the top echelons now of the police.
Yeah.
Women are more risk averse than men.
Yeah.
Women are more likely to go, oh, we need to talk about this. Sometimes we need to send in the riot squad. Sometimes we need to send in the horses.
Yeah.
If you take this to the nth degree, what this really says is if there's enough of you in Manchester, we can stop you having any rights. If we can stop you burning a book, it means we can stop you shopping there. We can stop you speaking out. We can stop you leaving your house if there's enough of us, because the police will always come down on our side because there's more of us and they're afraid of violence. That's not a democratic society.
No. Is Charlie Veitch involved in this as well, by the way? I think he was...
He wasn't even there. He was in Liverpool doing something in Liverpool, but he sent someone with a video camera to film it. But it's a shame I bet he wishes he was there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We talked last episode about the strengths of Trump and what he's doing in America, and then we started going through the various strengths of our strengths in the UK, which of course are a joke. But I want to talk about the Labour Party and our glorious leader as one of our strengths. So just in terms of his cabinet. News this week that David Lammy, who's the idiotic... Is he the Foreign Secretary? I'm not even sure what he is. He doesn't appear to be anything.
He represents us across the world.
Yes, he represents us across... in the first 3 months of the new government, he spent £900,000 on private air travel. That is more than apparently... what was the lady called who was the Prime Minister for about 2 months?
Liz Truss.
Liz Truss spent in her entire premiership basically on private air travel. So basically, he's been jetting around the world on private jets at our expense for the first 3 months.
I've got a problem with that. If he's achieving stuff through it.
He's achieving...
I want my Foreign Secretary going around the world doing deals, securing, agreements, fostering support for the UK. I don't mind that. But has he achieved anything?
Well, I don't think so.
No, he hasn't.
And the latest thing is the Marco Rubio, who's an American senator, quite a sophisticated American. So he's challenged David Lammy over the Chagos Islands. And when I saw that, I just thought, that's not really a fair fight, is it?
No.
It's like a highly seasoned, highly sophisticated political player like Marco Rubio challenging David Lammy. It's like, I don't know what the comparison is, but it's like a trans boxer fighting a woman boxer, isn't it, basically?
So the Chagos Island deal's dead. It's dead in the water now.
Well, we think it's dead, but the latest I've heard, it's going to cost twice as much as we originally thought, if it does go ahead.
Yeah, Trump will not allow it to go ahead. It's dead in the water.
No, well, let's hope that's good. All that'll save us £18 billion, which would, again, could be used for 10 years of funding.
We've got these valuable islands. Would you like them? And we'll pay you $18 billion a year.
Who wouldn't say yes to that? Sadiq Khan is mired in some controversy because apparently, I mean, how many people went to this Taylor Swift concert? Because everybody in the government, everybody you read about has had free tickets to Taylor Swift. I didn't even know who she was until she did these concerts. I've never even heard of her before. I'm more kind of cutting edge music, as you can imagine, Nick.
More grunge.
Yes, something like that. So apparently these free Taylor Swift tickets that Sadiq, I mean, I can't even imagine him at a Taylor Swift concert. He got them from a company that has been awarded £45 million worth of City Hall contracts. I mean, is there a little bit of conflict or corruption there, Nick? I mean, what would you say?
Is there a link between Dale Vince and his eco energy company giving the Labour Party £5 million last year, and now this year being awarded multi-million pound contracts? Is there a connection? Is there a connection with being given, a couple of £100 Taylor Swift concert tickets, which is nothing in the grand scheme of things, but what else are they giving these politicians? And it's not bribery as in, if I give you this, will you give me that? It doesn't work like that. It's, I'm going to give you all these little perks every now and again, and you'll see me in a good light. Yeah, it's all subconscious. You'll see me in a good light.
And they shouldn't go anywhere near that offer, should they? So as soon as somebody rings up and says, just say, sorry, we need to keep the relationship professional.
Yeah, I'll take them, and I'm going to put something online that some children in London will be going on my behalf.
Yeah.
That's the way to do it.
And publicise who gave it to you and be open about it.
Exactly.
Rachel Reeves, who's the Chancellor of the Exchequer, this is, do they call her Rachel Reeves from Accounts?
Yeah, Rachel from Accounts.
Rachel from Accounts. Because she's never actually done what she said on the CV. She was actually great. I mean, it's something that you'd rarely see, which is some mainstream media actually taking somebody to account. Richard Madeley grilled her about a CV, and he said, you spent 10 years here. You didn't, did you? You spent 4 years, and she just wouldn't answer the question, Nick. I don't know if you saw the interview.
No, I didn't.
It was actually embarrassing. And he was asking her again and again, you said your CV, you've lied on your CV, basically. She wouldn't answer the question. She started talking about, there's more important things to talk about than that at the moment, this, that and the other. That these people are lying in our faces, Nick, and we seem to be unable to do anything about it.
And Labour have taken this to a whole new level of lying to our faces.
Lying.
They're now increasing council tax throughout the country.
Yes.
Another promise they said they would not do.
Yeah.
They promised they would not raise council taxes. Some councils now, I think Birmingham have raised their council tax by 20% because they're bankrupt.
Yeah.
Others have raised them 10%. But even ones that are not bankrupt, you can get permission now to raise your council tax, I believe, to 10%. The increase, it's like...
Yes, it's right. Angela Rayner's given that power. Yeah. So she was grilled by Richard Madeley on the CV. She just basically lied. She went to China.
Yep.
Which is probably the worst place to go, given what's happened over the pond at the moment. Went to China and won a £600 million contract, which sounds relatively good, doesn't it? The Democratic Republic of Congo has had $3.8 billion from China. so some sub-Saharan wild African country has had $3.8 billion from China, and we've managed to get a £600 million contract. But to make that even worse, she's also lost a contract from AstraZeneca for a £450 million contract as well. So she's basically brought in zero to the country from anywhere else abroad, basically. 600
million for this country is a rounding error on the books.
Correct.
600 million sounds a lot, but it's absolutely nothing.
She was boasting about it. It's basically a slap in the face from China, a massive slap in the face. Basically, piss off and go back to where you came from. The Starmer has also apparently been lying about his CV because he said he went to state school. Have you heard this?
No.
So he said he went to state school, but apparently went to private school.
No.
Even though his father was a toolmaker.
Yeah.
He managed to go to he said he went to state school and he didn't. He went to private school. He said he went to state school. So that's the latest thing. But it doesn't really matter, does it? These things are now washing over us because we can't do anything about these corrupt, lying politicians that we have.
We expect everything they say to be a lie.
Yeah.
So therefore, when we find out the lie, it doesn't upset us like it used to anymore because we expected them to be lying to us all the time. And that's a bad state of affairs for any country.
The mayor of Lambeth is a 27-year-old called John Paul Ennis. Have you heard of him?
No.
It's anti-car Lambeth. It's they were the first to declare a climate emergency in 2000.
I have seen this, yes.
So now and this is how corrupt these grubby people are. He's now boasting about the perks of being driven around in a taxpayer-funded limo.
Yeah.
This 27-year-old knob, basically, boasting about, he's on Twitter or whatever, saying how fantastic he's being driven around in a limo. It's just, and these are the people who despise car drivers, putting on the ULEZ, whatever taxes on them, basically.
And until they're getting perks.
Until they're getting perks, and it's fine.
Yeah.
Sadiq Khan, set up during BLM, George Floyd, set up the London Commission for Diversity, which has spent £2 million, again of our money, on statues.
Yeah.
I don't know what they're statues of.
It wasn't just statues. It was looking at every statue in London to see why it's there. Is it a slave trader? Were they anti-gay? Were they anti-Muslim? And also putting up some statues to fill a gap. Like we haven't got any one-legged Ugandan trans people statues, so we need one of them. So it was a huge project.
Well, I was in London about a week ago, and not last week, the week before, and in Trafalgar Square they've got on that plinth. I don't know what that plinth is. Is it called the fourth plinth?
The fourth plinth, yeah.
There's a big statue. It's like, and it's like face masks of trannies basically.
Yeah.
Trannies from around. I don't know which trannies they are, but apparently they have to have their faces scattered around on the plinth. So that's some of the money that probably it's been spent on.
And that plinth was supposed to be for a statue for Queen Elizabeth II. That's why I believe it was always left empty. And this moving, this putting a new statue there every so many months was a temporary measure. Until she died, because they knew she was dying, so they kept it because she's been our longest serving monarch. The long-term plan was we'll leave that empty because eventually we're going to put a statue to Queen Elizabeth II.
And are they going to put it there?
Well, we've no idea, but that's why it's always been empty.
Well, if we ever get in power, Nick, well, that's going up there. Yeah. And we're seeing Trump pulling out of the World Health Organization and all these things as well. However, the UK, obviously seeing this is important, has decided to increase its investment in the World Health Organization to £310 million per year, up from $123 million in 2022.
Well, it has to, because now they've lost all the American money, so everyone in it's going to have to pay more.
So rather than just say, that's a great idea, let's save a load of money and get out of it, we're doubling down.
Yeah. This Labour government will always double down because it wants to be an internationalist. Communists are always about internationalism because they want a world communist state. So that's why Labour wants to keep in the UN Convention of Refugees, the European Court of Human Rights, the WHO, the UN. This is the agenda they're using for eventually to get a communist world state. And I want to be a nationalist. I want to pull out of all these international organisations.
I would as well. Yeah, totally.
And that doesn't mean we don't help the world, and that doesn't mean we don't cooperate and trade with the world. Of course it does. It means it's...
Why do we have to help the world, though, Nick? This is the bit I don't get. Again, this is the thing I've been indoctrinated since a kid. We've got to be helping. We've got to send money to starving kids in Africa and all that jazz. Why? You're not quite sure, are you?
No, I am, because it depends what I mean by helping the world. So let's say there's a huge, which is going to happen, there's a huge earthquake in Istanbul. 10,000 buildings have collapsed. And we know we've got 48 hours to save who is buried, otherwise they're going to starve to death and dehydrate to death. Yeah. Then I would like our country to help.
Why?
Because it's the right thing to do. We could send some teams over who are experiencing that. These are short-term interventions because something's happened.
But why is it the right thing to do?
because I'd have to give that some thought.
Exactly.
But it's just
exactly. We've been brainwashed to say it's the right thing to do. But my argument for that is, if Turkey know they're going to have an earthquake in the next few years, they should prepare for it. Why do we have to support them?
And that's a valid point. What we need to be careful of, especially in Africa, is we spend millions and billions in Africa ensuring children don't die. And then another company then will spend billions and billions when they're adults, making sure they don't starve to death and they've got jobs. It's like, these people can't run their own countries, can't maintain their populations, and we're maintaining their populations for them with our money, and it's not sustainable.
It doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. So because they don't know what they're doing. So I'll give you a very good example of that, which happens a lot in real life. You have a family, you have 5 kids, yeah? 2 of those kids do really well, successful or whatever. 3 of them don't do well. When you die, you leave your money to the 3 kids who haven't done well. Why are the kids who have done well
penalised?
Being penalised?
Yeah.
That's what this is an example of, isn't it?
Yeah.
We've done okay, we've done well. They're not doing well. Let's give them all our money.
Yeah.
Oh, I prefer to give our money to our poorer people.
Yeah.
I prefer to increase benefits for our poorer people so they have a better quality of life rather than sending the money abroad to people that have got nothing to do with us.
Well, the money we send abroad, most of it goes into fraud. Most of it funds local wars and things like that. And the people there hate us because they see us as meddling in their business, because we're the ones who said, right, we're going to give you 9 billion, but we don't like that leader. Overthrow that leader, we'll give you 9 billion. We're constantly interfering in these countries, hence why they never get an equilibrium balance of their populations of what they want. They're always being interfered with. We need to walk away from large parts of the world.
Yeah. If people want, by the way, if you want to volunteer and go and work abroad for Médecins Sans Frontières or whatever, you can go and do that.
Yeah.
If people want to give to charities that want to help them, they can do that as well. I wouldn't personally, but I don't see why our government has to do it.
Yeah.
So
on our behalf.
Yeah. So if you feel altruistic and you just said then it's the right thing to do, that's your personal opinion.
Yeah.
If it's your personal opinion, give personal help.
Yeah. It's a good point.
But then you wouldn't, would you? Because you know what corrupt the charities are. So I think we were talking about the Oxfam thing, weren't we?
Yeah.
One of our great strengths in this country, of course, is our employment legislation and our benefit system, which I want to celebrate now. So we're now spending 65 billion a year on sickness benefits.
Yeah.
Do you know how much we spend on defence?
Less.
Correct.
All right.
60 billion. Do you know how much we spend on the police?
Less.
Correct. 20 billion. That sickness benefit bill is expected to rise to be 100 billion by the year 2029.
Yeah. Do you know why we have this problem? Started in the 80s. So in 80s, under Thatcher, we had terrible unemployment figures. To help control those figures, we then came out with something called income support. Basically, we said to people, tell us you're sick and we'll move you off unemployment, we'll move you into this sickness thing. You get the same amount of money, you don't have to sign on every 2 weeks, and suddenly our figures look good for unemployment. It started in the 80s, a way of trying to massage unemployment figures for the Thatcher government. And then once they created this new arm of benefits, it just increased. And the government never want to tackle this, because part of the consequence of tackling it will be forcing people to claim unemployment benefit, which then makes the unemployment figures go up.
Rocket. Yeah.
So it's like, so it's all about massaging figures, and governments, every government since has been willing to pay the financial price, so it looks like we've got low unemployment.
And that makes sense because the total benefits bill is 134 billion. So that suggests that 50% of our benefits bill is sickness benefits.
When we have, while at the same time we're spending more on the NHS, we have more new medicines, more new procedures. I know our NHS is failing, but it hasn't failed that badly that we're becoming sicker and sicker and sicker. It's an oxymoron that we can have free healthcare and we're becoming sicker and sicker.
Well, I think we've discussed these numbers. I'm just trying to find them now. I don't want to slow things down. But the number of people in this country who are out of work.
It's last figures I saw was between 9.5 and 10 million out of work in this country.
Correct. So here we are. A quarter of working age people, 11 million in this country, have got no jobs. And of that, I'm assuming a lot of those are on sickness benefits.
A big chunk will be, yeah.
Yeah. 2.5 million of those people are under 25, basically. So that's part of the reason we have an issue. So those, when it says a quarter of working age people have no jobs, it means a quarter of working age people, not necessarily unemployed, but they may be on sickness or whatever. And that's how we're funding it, basically.
Yeah.
If those 10 million people came back to work, we would have a completely different country.
Can you imagine 10 million extra people in this country paying tax?
Yeah.
Paying national insurance, not using benefits. So that's like a double whammy save there.
It's a double. You're right. It actually goes both ways. It goes two ways.
So suddenly they're paying in, but they're not taking out. That's a double saving there.
Yeah.
And then would we have to then keep importing millions of foreigners? We've got 10 million people not working in this country.
Yeah.
That's your employment market there.
I don't think many people are aware of that number.
No, they're not.
Or understand how important it is.
Because you only hear the official unemployment figure.
Yes.
And that's why governments have always done this, because unemployment at the moment, was it 2-3 million?
Oh, is that what they're saying it is?
So yeah.
That's bollocks.
We know it's bollocks.
Yeah.
But they get to say, official unemployment figures, there's only 2-3 million. And compared to the size of our economy, that's quite low.
So what they probably do is, if the employment numbers are, by the way, the unemployment numbers have gone up. I think they've gone up 50,000 in December.
Yeah, they have.
But if they start to go up, I better say, stick a few more on sickness benefits. Stick a few more on sickness benefits.
That's what
that'll keep our numbers down.
That's what all governments from the 80s have done.
Yeah. But in fact, the answer is to stop those benefits, isn't it? Get people back to work. It's
complicated, but in a nutshell, yes.
Is it complicated?
Yeah.
If we're seeing what's happening across the pond, is it complicated, this stuff?
It's all complicated because it's you have to be a politician, because you can come up with some great policies like we're stopping benefits for all these people. All it takes is a week later to have TV crews on the streets and homeless people with children and families sat there going, my benefits were stopped, I've been kicked out, and everybody then will change their mind and we go back to where we were. So
no, they won't, because nobody watches mainstream TV anymore.
It needs managing, so that's a complicated bit. But the solutions are very simple. You make benefits less attractive, you have to take people off it, and you have to have jobs available and training available for them to take. But the vast majority of people have to be pushed into employment and training because they won't do it voluntarily.
Employment legislation. So we've all talked about working from home for a long time. You know, I despise working from home. And some people who work from home are arseholes, but a lot aren't. Just for clarity, Nick, because I know that's something that you're very... office occupancy is up to 60% in 2025 compared to 24% in 2021. That's good.
Right, so people are going, I knew they were going back to offices because businesses are demanding it. I wasn't sure what the figures were, but that's a big jump.
However, that doesn't apply to an executive in Windsor Council,
right,
who has been working from home for a year in Kyrgyzstan. I can't pronounce it.
Right.
That's quite nice, isn't it?
Isn't it?
I don't know what Kyrgyzstan's like, but...
Be a shithole.
Well, he's working from there.
Yeah, but it's great because he'll live there like a king on £100 a month.
Yeah.
And what's his job title?
I don't know. I couldn't get the details of it. There's a picture of the guy, but I couldn't get his details.
So on average, he'll be on 30 grand a year as a low level job in the council. He'll be on about 30 grand a year. And if he's living on £100 a week, like a king there.
Live like a king in Kyrgyzstan, work for Windsor Council. And Windsor Council are complaining they haven't got enough money, by the way, of course, as they will do.
What they should do is say you can work from different countries. If you're, because we want you to work from home, you can work from there. But then we translate your British salary into the same salary you would get there.
Yeah.
So now you're on £6 grand a year living and working there, because that's how that would...
There's an easier answer, which is stop working from home. And finally, of those people who are on sickness benefits, apparently 2.4 million of them. 2.4 million. So you're talking about the actual employment numbers being 2.4. Of the people on... Actually, we need to find out how many people are actually on sickness benefits, don't we? That would be interesting. Of the 2.4 million people... Sorry, 2.4 million of those on sickness benefits are getting an additional £7,000 on top per year on top of their basic benefits if they drop into a certain special category.
Yeah.
So they're not even living on the breadline, these people. They're living quite comfortably.
And one of the reasons why this has taken off, because if you know how to play the benefit system, which a lot of people do, especially if it's generational and you live on estates like that, you get told what to say, what to do, what you're entitled to. There's many extra benefits you can claim. Did you know that if you're a registered alcoholic or drug user, your class is disabled, so you get more money?
Really?
Yeah.
If you're a registered drug user?
Yeah. Or alcoholic. So if your doctor confirms all that, you get extra money because you're disabled.
It's worth being an alcoholic for.
Of course it is.
And it pays for the booze.
I think I'm always drinking. Another one is...
We're not going to find out you're claiming extra benefits for your alcoholism. Yeah.
Another good one is if there's something wrong with your child, so carer's allowance. I knew a smackhead in Manchester when I worked for the council who wasn't looking after his child, the baby. His parents were looking after the child because he was a smackhead, but yet he was claiming something like £60 a week as the official carer of his child, because his child had a skin condition that needed cream rubbing into him every day. So we now pay parents to rub cream into their children, £60 a week, and there's dozens of these things.
Yeah, just needs stopping.
All need stopping.
I was actually just thinking, I was reading through that we talked about multiculturalism, National Hijab Day, DEI, and now we're talking about, but if I was reading this is an advert to come to England, isn't it? This is a real advert for somebody, for a lesbian with a limp who likes pole dancing to come to this country, isn't it?
Do you know that if you Google the Home Office website and go onto the page about immigration, it tells you what you're entitled to if you come here as an immigrant?
Jesus Christ. We
advertise on the official government website what you're entitled to when you get here. Free education, free dental care, free NHS. You'll get money for this. We advertise it as if we have to tell them.
Like it's a bloody tourism
thing.
Yeah. We advertise how much of our money we're going to give them.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing.
And we wonder why they come.
Yeah. Finally, in terms of, you're talking about the NHS benefit system as well, apparently the NHS is offering speech therapy to lockdown kids. Have you heard about this?
No.
On WhatsApp.
Right.
So now, if you're a kid with speech issues as a result of lockdown, because you were held against your civil liberties rights for inside a little flat for 2 years, you can't speak properly, they'll give you speech therapy now, but it's on WhatsApp. Because they can't actually be asked to...
Because they're working from home.
Yeah, because they're working from home, probably. No, probably because they're working from home, you're probably right.
I had speech therapy when I was a child. I had a stutter.
Okay.
And
Did they used to put a pencil between your teeth?
No.
That's the technique, apparently.
Right. They taught me to basically...
Did they just used to clout you every time you stuttered?
No. At school they may have done, but when I went to, say, a proper therapist about getting over there was lots of things that they made me do. I basically grew out of it. By the time I got to 12, 13, I stopped stuttering, and I still stutter now. The only two people who can ever see it is my mum and my wife. No one else, because it's basically that now. Just before I speak.
I've noticed it, but I didn't like to mention it.
So if you ever see me about to speak and I go... That's me preparing to speak so I don't stutter.
I thought, I just assumed that was you being as usual lost for words. No ideas. I have a little lisp sometimes as well, if that helps. Of course.
This is funny. So did this thing with speech therapist, and it was about making you say things without thinking, and and then you don't stutter them.
Yeah.
So we played this game where she'd go black, I'd go white, fat, slim, dog, cat, and one day she went silly and I went cow.
Oh, right, I see.
Because that was the first thing that came in mind, silly cow. She found it funny and told my mum, and she found it funny. I was like 7. No,
I'm sure you can. I'm sure you can whip that up into an Another strength of ours in this country, which we celebrate and enjoy all the time, is of course democracy. Democracy is our strength. But there's been a survey of Gen Z people recently, and the results are quite interesting, Nick, I think you'll find. Right. So Gen Z is 13 to 27-year-olds. I don't know why that's Gen Z.
I don't understand all this boomers and millennials.
Well, I think you're a boomer.
I have no idea.
Gen Z are young people.
Right.
You wouldn't understand.
No, I don't.
52% of Gen Z think the UK would be a better place with a strong leader in charge who doesn't have to bother with Parliament and elections. Do you think that's quite interesting? 52%.
I do.
So we're now talking about a majority of the young generation coming through.
This always happens. It's a pendulum. Young people always rebel against the status quo. For a long time, they were rebelling against conservatism and Victorian values, and that's why we got the woke stuff. But the woke stuff now is seen as a status quo. So young people now are rebelling against what they see, which is tolerance and compassion and all those other bollocks. So it doesn't surprise me that they're becoming more right-wing.
And it's interesting because we were talking about, when we were at the Free Speech Union thing last week, we were talking about, or this week it was, I think, we were talking about how there was a strong Christian feeling to it. Apparently now as well, half are as likely to identify as atheists as their parents. So they're less likely to call themselves atheists now.
Again, because being Christian now is seen as counterculture.
Yeah.
So it's cool to be Christian.
Yeah, it's cool to be Christian.
And
yeah.
people online are cool and they're Christians, and it's the pendulum swinging to the other side.
That gave me some hope when I read those stats.
And again, if you look at young people, why would young people celebrate the status quo at the moment?
They wouldn't. It's just shit.
Their jobs are paid crap.
Yeah.
Full of immigrants.
Yeah.
It's dangerous.
Yeah.
If you're a woman now, you've got men changing in front of you.
Yeah.
You can't afford to buy a house. You can't afford to rent somewhere to live. You're straddled with 50, 80 grand's worth of loans from university.
Yeah.
Your degree's worthless.
Yeah.
And it's like, of course they're going, well, I'm not supporting the status quo because there's nothing in this for me.
Yeah. Yeah. It's speaking about women being in danger. There was a video, a YouTube article by that guy. I can't remember his name now. I like him. It's Modernity News, I think it's called. And he was showing films in Germany of women literally walking down the street. One case was a woman pushing a pram, and immigrants literally following them and saying, "You're attractive. I fancy you. Can I have a kiss?"
Yeah.
And one particular situation, one was sort of on her own on an estate. She was filming basically. And she was saying, please, in Germany, please leave me alone or whatever in German. And he was just guy following her, and he was a big black guy, and he looked quite scary. I mean, if there was nobody around, and it's happening on the tube, men approaching women, you look sexy, can I kiss you, all that sort of stuff. It's just happening in the streets in Germany now. It's a horrific place for women to go out. Women are scared to be at bus stops on their own in Germany now.
This is because we've imported these cultures.
Yeah.
These people, these men are not necessarily evil or sex offenders. This is just alien cultures to us.
Yeah.
And we don't want it in Europe, and the women don't like it in Europe.
No. This is a good one. I like this one. You won't like it. 47% of Gen Z want a revolution.
Young people have always wanted revolutions, and young people want revolutions because they don't understand history. And again, they want rid of the status quo. And wars and revolutions are young people's things, because we always think we're going to live forever when we're young. It's exciting to be a young man fighting, or the ideas of fighting, being in the war. The realities are completely different. So that doesn't surprise me.
But what's good to hear, to know they've not been beaten by COVID and the crackdowns on the riots and all that jazz. The people still there. These young people still have a will.
Yep.
The will to change things, which is fantastic. They've not been broken by this grotty government, have they?
Young people are rarely broken, and that's where the future always lies. But they're beginning to rebel.
Yeah. You like this one. 45% of men think we've gone so far with women's equality that we are discriminating now against men.
Oh, that's not to be debated. That's absolute. I wrote a book on it.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
feminism, myths, lies,
and ungratefulness.
Buy it if you can, ladies and
Yeah,
gentlemen.
I mean, I can give you some examples. Let's look at childbirth and abortion. A woman can kill your baby in the womb anytime she likes. You have no say. If you want to kill that baby in the womb, you have no say. If you want to save that baby in the womb, you have no say. Reproduction rights are all to do with women. Men have no say. If we want to equalise that, then we should be able to say a woman can't abort a baby without the father approving it as well. Because don't forget, couples that murder together stay together. So it'd bring that couple together as well because they've murdered together. Then look at employment. I mean, men, the amount of offices this is like at least 10, 15 years ago, but it was happening then. It's even worse now. The amount of times I sat in offices in Manchester Council and had to move my desk and chair so I wouldn't be gazing at someone's cleavage or someone's short skirt.
Move it so you could be gazing.
So I couldn't.
Oh, sorry.
Because you sat there typing and I was like, oh, Jesus, look at the cleavage on her.
How much cleavage was there going on in that?
You'd be amazed. But even if there was no cleavage or a tiny bit of cleavage or short, I'd be there going, I don't look that direction because I'm going to
you weren't asked to move then?
I'm going to be accused of something here.
Oh, right, sorry.
And sometimes as a man, you gaze and you can't help yourself for a split second. And then many times I had to move my chair and my computer to a different part of my desk so I wasn't looking in that direction. I know men who work for the council who say they won't have meetings with a woman on their own in the same room in case she makes allegations.
Did they say, how are you moving your laptop without your hands being on the side? Oh, I thought what happened was because you were gazing at their cleavage, you were asked to move.
No.
All right, sorry, okay.
Because you dare, because men are scared stiff in the workplace. 20, 30 years ago, most people met their partners at work. Doesn't happen now.
No, it doesn't happen.
Because you're scared to ask anyone out. You're scared of doing anything. And the men are always to blame. Hardly anyone goes to jail. And if women, hardly any of them go to jail for falsely accusing men of rape.
Correct.
A false accusation still ruins a man's reputation.
Yeah, you're right.
Even when they're proving it never happened, it's still, people go, no smoke without fire.
It's very true about men. Apparently men now, it's interesting, my daughter, who you know, is a young woman. And she said men are very now cautious of approaching a woman in a club or a bar or whatever. As you know, I'm a member of a men's club in London. She goes there sometimes as my guest, stays in one of the rooms or whatever. But she says when she's there and they're in the bar, men approach her all the time there because it's a men's club, because it's their environment. Yeah. It's far easier than to go and chat, but chat to her in a nice way, I'm saying. Yeah. But she was saying if that was a mixed bar or whatever, that would never happen. Yeah. Men are scared now to approach women.
They are, because there's no benefit in it. And women are losing out because of it, and men are losing out from it.
But when I was young, that was a standard thing.
Yeah, that's how you met people.
The number of times women would be approached by men telling them that they tell them to piss off or whatever, until it was somebody they would like or whatever. That's the way it worked, didn't it?
Yeah. But feminism, which I write in my book, is ruining society and ruining relationships between men and women. It's offered nothing positive whatsoever to society. And if people tell you feminism is all about equality, it's a complete lie. Modern feminists now, like Julie Bindel and that Australian woman who lives in the UK.
Julie Bindel. Germaine Greer.
Germaine Greer. Both of them admit it's got nothing to do with equality. And they're two faces of feminism in this country. They admit it's got nothing to do with equality. It's a female supremacy movement. That's all feminism is. And women have been lied to.
I like Julie Bindel though.
Oh no, she's a man hater.
I've met her and shook hands with her. She was fine. She didn't hate me.
Oh, she did?
Did she?
Oh yeah. Yeah, she hates all men.
She smiled.
Because she knew. She goes, I hate him. And he doesn't know.
So, well, the positive thing about that is now half of men of that generation agree with you, Nick.
And many women. Do you know how many women in the UK identify as a feminist?
How many?
It's somewhere between 6 and 14%.
All right, I don't know how you know that.
Yeah, it's people have done studies, but
So there's not that many then.
exactly, because even women know feminism isn't about equality. Even they can see the man hatred in the movement.
33% of Generation Z, Generation Z, Gen Z, think it would be better with the army in charge.
People say this to me online all the time, of all ages, and my answer to that is, have you seen how woke our army is?
That's a good point. Maybe a strong army, but not our army.
Our army is just like our police force.
Yeah.
They're politically captured, they're ideologues.
Yeah.
The army...
There'd be a tranny general in charge.
Yeah. You're thinking of the army from the 50s. The army today is woke, so no, the army wouldn't improve anything.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one of the issues that Trump has got in America now. The army's been destroyed, hasn't it?
Yeah.
He's actually, and as a vaccine apologist, you'll appreciate this, anybody who refused the vaccine and got sacked is being invited back into the army.
And will get back pay.
And will get back, which is
4
fantastic.
years, yeah. And so they should, because you shouldn't be discriminated against for taking a medical procedure or a vaccine or not. Like your friend, the Spartan, having a go at me.
You're just saying that because you know you took the vaccine and you shouldn't have. So democracy is our strength. I think what's very pleasing about that is we clearly don't have democracy at the moment, but it's pleasing to see that our new and upcoming generation has a different view to the current generation, which is great news. Another of our strengths, net zero, is our strength, isn't it, Nick?
That's beginning to die under this Labour government.
It's beginning to die, but this Labour government is still pursuing horrific policies.
Oh, they will, yeah.
So I'll start with a little one first. Bristol Council, this has pissed me off more than anything. It's not even important. Bristol Council is pushing for monthly bin collections to assist with recycling targets.
Yeah.
I mean, that is ridiculous, isn't it? The bins should be emptied twice a week, all of them. Not, at the moment, it's a variation of once every 2 weeks, isn't it? Or whatever, you blue one.
Some areas it's once every 3 weeks, some areas once every 2 weeks. Me and you growing up, it was weekly.
Correct. It
Weekly.
was. It wasn't a big thing. You didn't have to worry about whether your bin was too full because it would get cleared every week.
Yeah.
The streets were cleaned. It was apart from the 70s when there was a bit overflowing. You know, it wasn't even something you thought about. The bin would be emptied. It'd be there. It would be invariably never be full, and that was fine. Now we have to plan, don't we? Our rubbish.
Yep.
But Bristol are now going a step further, talking about monthly bin collections. It's scandalous.
Councils, or the precursors to councils, were set up to remove refuge from cities and towns.
Yes.
Because they were a health hazard. That's why these organisations got set up. Because of that. Because the more refuge you have, the more likely you'll have rats, you'll have diseases. And that's why they were created in the first place. I think they were called corporations then. To go every 4 weeks, that's an utter disgrace. And they're blaming recycling. I know a guy who has his own refuge collection company. He's a millionaire. You know, he's got this huge thing. And he told me several years ago, he said, Nick, 90% of the recycling stuff I collect goes in landfill.
Really?
He says in this country, it either gets burnt or gets shipped to China for landfill. And that's everything you've taken care to recycle.
Yeah.
He goes, most of it just gets tipped in the same because we've not got the infrastructure to separate it all, to recycle it, because no one wants the stuff. It's to it. He goes, it's a con. If you think you're recycling anything in this country, it's a con. The only reason why we recycle in this country is because the penalties that the EU would impose upon countries that they didn't reach certain recycling targets. That doesn't mean you have to use the crap you've recycled. You just have to collect it and separate it, and then you mark for that. You don't get fined. He said it's one big con, and he's made millions out of it, and he's quite happy to say it's a huge con.
Would you, if you were in charge, when you get in charge, Nick, will you stop recycling?
Would I stop recycling as a blanket thing? I don't think so. I'd need to discuss it with people who know a lot more than me. I'm sure the things we can recycle, but I'd like to make it a business because our waste is valuable. Tin cans are valuable. Glass bottles are valuable. I don't see why councils are not being given money for private companies going, I'll collect this waste, I'll collect all the blue bins, and we'll pay you for the privilege of collecting because we're going to make money out of that. That's how we need to be looking at recycling, where it puts money back into our pockets.
Now, you do know, we're still net zero, by the way. You do know that we only produce 50% of our food in this country, don't you?
It's not as high as that from the...
Is it 49 now?
From what I've read, I think it's like a third.
Oh, no, I think it's 50%.
I've read a third. But hey, let's go with half.
Despite that, we are going to consume 10% of English farmland for net zero. And that's sticking on solar panels, wind farms, all that crap as well. So 10% of our arable farmland is going to be lost to net zero.
Yeah, because what the government's saying is if we can turn that into green energy, that mitigates some of our carbon. The fact that land now is not producing food means we can save the diesel costs of delivering it, the farming costs, so all these things are adding to net zero that we're not producing. So we'll just buy it somewhere else, which then will create the pollution, the carbon dioxide somewhere else. More of it because they won't be as environmentally friendly as us, and then we'll ship it here. So
big tankers.
The overall carbon dioxide, which isn't a problem, but they think it is, but we increase more by exporting our food production and our manufacturing. It's all a big con.
And also, we also endanger ourselves as well because we're relying on other countries for our food.
Oh, if there's a war, if anything like that, then we've seen what's happened with our energy supply.
Yeah.
Why we're paying through the nose at the moment is because energy is so expensive because we don't produce enough of our own. Same with food. Hitler nearly starved us out of the war in the early 40s because we didn't produce enough food, and we're just waiting for someone else to try the same tactic.
It's called food security, isn't it? And we don't have food. We don't have food security at the moment. Yeah. And we're making it worse.
Yeah, and we don't have steel security. So we can't even build the armaments we wanted anymore now because we import all our steel.
Jesus. Judge Lord Eric has banned production at the Jackdaw gas site and the Rosebank oil site in the North Sea this week. That's two of the major, I think it's Shell or everyone. So we've been stopped again from harvesting our gas and oil.
But that's because what people don't understand, they think the judge has done this because he wants to. The judge has done this because Theresa May signed into law the net zero agenda. So everything we do has to be contributing to reducing net zero, and it's in law. So
Theresa May's caused the right problem for us.
She's a bitch. So this is all wrote into law.
She did the tranny stuff as well.
Yeah, and the stop and search stuff and everything. So if we're going to stop doing that, the law has to be changed. We have to take net zero out of the law. Judges can only do what's written in the law.
Quadrilla will close the last two fracking sites next week.
That's shocking. Fracking could have been our future.
It's fracking shocking.
Yeah, could have been our future.
Yeah, it could.
Could have been our future.
It will be.
At some point, yes, it will. Yeah.
And I think what's more interesting, which is kind of I said, as you said, net zero is finishing. I think it is going to start finishing, and I think we've already got this conflict over Heathrow Airport, haven't we?
Yeah.
But the Norwegian government coalition has ended, so the Norwegian government has fallen apart.
Has it, right?
And the reason it's fallen apart is because they don't want to send their energy to us. So what's happening is when we're low on energy, the Norwegians have to send energy they need to us. And it ends up costing them more money because they have to get their energy from somewhere else as well. So the reason they've fallen apart is the coalition is because they've disagreed fundamentally on this, and the people want to stop it. But if they're not sending us their energy, and we have another difficult time like when the winds died down a few weeks ago, we're in trouble.
If I was Norwegian, I would be fuming.
Yes,
we're sending our energy to another country, and we need it here.
Yeah.
Norway should not be, even though we're British and I want the energy, they should not be doing that. They need to put their own people first.
Correct.
And not be subsidising poor policies in other countries, meaning our country.
But what's happening, Nick, is our stupidity is being supported by other stupidity in other countries.
It is.
That's what's happening.
Let's all be stupid together.
And it's a roundabout, isn't it? So if you think about it, there's this roundabout going on with stupid countries supporting stupid countries.
Yeah.
And suddenly there's a great big wedge being driven into it
Yeah.
by Trump.
Yeah.
And he's stopping it, isn't
Yeah.
he? So that's why I think this will have a far bigger impact than we realise. That's why all these countries are now doing this, because it's breaking down, isn't it? This mutual stupidity support system that we've got going is breaking down.
It is, but you also can't compete on the world stage if the largest power in the world, the Americans, suddenly have dirt cheap energy. And that's what they may be getting if he starts drilling and fracking and everything like that. So we're going to have to follow suit, otherwise we will not be competitive.
We've known for years, haven't we, another of our great strengths is the state-run BBC.
Oh,
You know,
excellent.
as children, we realise that. Now, as we get older, we
Yeah.
realise it as well. So they continue to be pathetic, as they always are. So Ravia Singh, have you heard of her? She's a presenter. She's probably interviewed
I probably
you.
know her face.
I think she's in Manchester. She was in Manchester for a long time.
Right,
Ravia
I
Singh.
think I know her face.
She was talking. She was doing an article on the anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz.
Yeah.
And she mentioned the 6 million people killed and went through all the various categories, but she failed to mention Jewish people.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, is the BBC's anti-Semitism so profound now that they even deny that Jews were killed during the Holocaust? This is where we're getting to.
It's,
I don't know if you saw that.
I've read the story. I didn't see the clip. Yeah, shocking. I mean, you'd imagine a mistake like that would have to be on purpose.
It's massive, isn't
Yeah.
it? Yeah.
It's like talking about transatlantic slave trade and not saying the word black African.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I'd be just as annoyed if they did talk about the 6 million Jews, but then didn't mention anybody else.
Yes.
Like all the gays and disabled and
Yeah.
gypsies they slaughtered in
Yeah.
the millions. I'd be just as annoyed as that, because
Yeah.
just tell us the facts. Stop twisting things to fit your narrative.
Are they now trying to whitewash the Holocaust then? Is that what they're trying to do?
Well,
Because of course there's a lot of the left I've heard say
been
the Holocaust didn't happen.
yeah, they've been trying to do this for a while. I mean, I've got questions about the Holocaust, and I'm not a Holocaust denier, but I think no, it's well worth a field of study about that period of time. But it's a fact that, you know, Jews were murdered and slaughtered, and, you know, we've got lots of evidence for lots of things. But the diminishing of the Jews' experience in the Holocaust is an agenda from the far left, because they hate the Jews, but the Jews always come back with Holocaust, and the Jews have used the Holocaust in their favour as well. So talk about identity politics. Jews have been doing this for a long time.
Yeah.
But if the left can diminish the impact and the public psyche around the Holocaust, it's easier to hate the Jews.
Yes. Yeah.
Hence why Israel is always being accused of genocide, because they're using that accusation against them to diminish what they went through during the Second World War.
Yeah.
What's happening in Palestine and Gaza and all that isn't a genocide. It may be right, it may be wrong. The war may be justified, it may not be justified. Israel are killing thousands of civilians on purpose or by accident. There's whole things we can discuss here, but it's not a genocide by any means of the imagination. But to accuse Jews of that is to diminish what they went through.
But I think it is shocking, this, isn't it? Because we've seen the BBC's bias towards the Palestinians and Gaza and Hamas and all that sort of stuff, and now they are continuing this whitewash against the Jews by not mentioning during an article. I mean, it's quite shocking, and it's so blatant as well. It's not even hidden in or subtle. There's no subtlety involved anymore with these people.
Yep.
They are just doing it to our faces, basically. We're being gaslit.
If they did give it a figure like we're celebrating, the Holocaust week this week, and it's 80 years since the liberation of Auschwitz, and during the Second World War, the genocide killed 27 million people.
Yeah.
Well, that includes everybody who was killed, but they didn't. They said 6 million people. Well, the 6 million people were all Jews. We know the number 6 million.
We do.
This nothing surprises me with the BBC anymore. Nothing surprises me.
The BBC did a puff piece with Bill Gates, who happens to fund the BBC Media Action Charity,
Right.
which is also funded by USAID, which has just been closed down by Trump.
Yeah.
And during this puff piece, which is basically saying how fantastic Bill Gates was, I mean, Elon Musk is the guy to talk to if you're going to talk to somebody like that. He basically said that under 16 should be banned from social media, and that Robert F. Kennedy is a bad guy, basically. And the BBC, again, showing extreme bias, are promoting Bill Gates. Because he's at the heart of a lot of these things that they're involved in, I think.
Yeah, he supports their narrative and he's on the right side. Now, social media and internet access for young people on their smartphones is a huge problem. I don't know what the answer is, but it is a huge problem, and it needs discussing. But just to have that discussion as in a blanket ban for under 16s, that's not even a discussion.
No.
And I don't think it could be done.
No.
But what they're trying to get at is worth a huge discussion in society.
Yeah.
Because phones are damaging young people.
Yeah, I think you're right. Andrew Marr, again, he's no longer on the BBC, but I thought I'd include him in this. So
somebody was showing clips of him the other day at the election going, we need sensible people involved, and do you know what, Labour's won now, and it's great having sensible people in charge. It's like we've gone back to normal now, that we've got these sensible, and they were playing all those clips the other day. It's like, oh, that's not aged well, has it? That's not aged well.
So he wrote an article, and it was in the Telegraph. I've studied the arm angles of Musk, and this is what I've concluded. And I just thought, no one gives a shit, Andy. No one gives a shit what you think.
That is one of the most pathetic headlines I've ever read.
Oh, did you see that?
Yeah. He studied the arm angles.
Yeah.
So that's how you know someone's a Nazi, because of their arm angles. It's just that continuation of a dog with a bone. They don't want to let this go because it's always worked before.
It's the only thing they've got.
Yes.
But the point is, nobody cares what Andrew Marr thinks anyway, do they? No one cares, mate. You're finished. I think you suggested in one of our previous episodes, I think the terminology used was it liberal centrists? I can't remember what it was.
Sensible liberals.
Sensible liberals. Sensible liberals are another of our strengths. So I was watching Steve Coogan on The News Agents, which is a horrific programme with Emily Maitlis and Andrew Marr and all those characters. No, not Andrew Marr, it's John Sopel.
Yeah.
John Sopel.
He's like a champagne socialist.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I went to the Cheltenham Festival once, and he was in the same hotel as me, and we were nodding. We were like nodding to each other. Oh. That's when before I woke up, and I thought he was great. Yeah. I didn't realise he was such and I was like, all right, John.
He's done some funny stuff. I liked him. Not everything he did, but I found him funny.
He's not a comedian. He's a reporter.
Who?
John Sopel.
No, I'm talking the other guy.
Oh, Steve Coogan.
Yeah.
Oh no, I've never met Steve Coogan.
All right, yeah.
He was talking with one of the shills about toxic masculinity and Andrew Tate, and saying how terrible it is. And then you know what he said is, I'd like to punch him if I met him.
Oh, that. Yeah. First of all, Andrew Tate would rip your face off.
Exactly, yeah, exactly.
And your answer to people you don't like is physical violence. Families always do this. Punch a Nazi. It's okay to punch a Nazi.
Yes.
Let's all be tolerant and compassionate, unless you're a Nazi, in which case we can punch you.
Yeah.
The whole reality makes no sense.
But he couldn't see the hypocrisy. No. They were talking about toxic masculinity and all that. And then she said, well, what would you do if you met Andrew Tate? And he said, I'd punch him.
Yeah.
And you're right. The sad thing is, Andrew Tate would tear him apart. He wouldn't get anywhere near Andrew Tate, would he?
Andrew Tate is a complex figure. And there's many things about him that I don't like. And there's other things he's said and done that I quite like. But he's become he's become the new Tommy Robinson.
Yes.
He's become the new person to hate and turn into a boogeyman, and to tell your kids about, don't go near him, crazy.
And then Rory Stewart. So JD Vance, who's a new vice president, who's a very, very bright guy. Yeah. Very bright. Rory Stewart, JD Vance, I think, quoted the Bible and said something about, I'm paraphrasing now, so you might have to correct me, but he said something about family first, then country, then whatever. You know, he put something you and I have talked about. Charity begins at home. I'm a great believer in that. And then Rory Stewart came back with some comment trying to quote whatever it was, and then JD Vance came back with actual quotes from the back supporting what he'd been saying, basically blowing Rory Stewart out of the water. And then to finish it off, he said, "These guys are the problem." And it's kind of what you were saying about what did you call them? Sensible liberals.
Sensible liberals.
He's got an IQ of 110. Rory Stewart's got an IQ of 110 and thinks he's got an IQ of 130. And they're not that bright, these guys. They know a little bit of stuff. But when they come up against somebody like JD Vance, who's got a real brain and a real skill about him, they're just blown out of the water, aren't they?
Yeah. I mean, he is one of the reasons why the Tory party was such a failure.
Yeah.
Because they allowed people like him to join. People like, that's that other woman called, I forget her name now. But David Cameron ruined the Tory party by allowing basically Lib Dems to join the Tory party. Yeah. And that's what he is. He's a Lib Dem.
Yeah. I mean, he was being touted as a leader at one point.
He ran for leadership. I liked some of the stuff he talked about. I liked him because he'd done so many tours in the army in Afghanistan and stuff like that. I liked him for that. But he was too weak, mild, wishy-washy. Yeah. And that's what I didn't like
he was whining to Alistair Campbell the other day, saying, "People say I'm not a real man, blah, blah, blah."
He's not.
And, you know, I'm Gollum. And Alistair Campbell didn't help because he said, "Oh, yeah, they say that you're my gimp." Because he is a bit of a gimpy character, isn't he, Rory Stewart? And he was saying, "Oh, you know, but these people, they say that's what they talk about, you know, being about real men, but there's far more." But he is just a wimpy little shit, isn't he? He's not a proper man, and he's not a proper representative of our people, is he?
He's an enigma because of his army career. So
yeah, but you can imagine he was just sitting in his office ordering people around because he was a bit posh. Can't you? I bet he never actually fought anybody.
Yeah, but he did tours of Afghanistan. So
in the back of a bus.
See, I find him, apart from the army bit, he's exactly what I expect him to be. It's just the army bit that goes, oh, I just don't understand where that fits in. But yeah, he comes across as a weak, pathetic man. If we all get together and hug, we can solve the world problem.
Well, Alistair Campbell said he'd back him in most. He didn't say all fights. He said some fights. Right. But I reckon you could take Rory Stewart, Nick.
With my back, I could take 9 Rory Stewarts all at once. Him and Andy Burnham. I'll do the pair at once.
This is what when we take power. This is what we need to do. A televised event every week of you fighting. Yeah. So first week.
Welcome to the Thunderdome.
The first week it'd be Andy Burnham. Yeah. Next week it'd be Rory Stewart.
Yeah. Then it'll be that MMA fighter who's got a girly name.
Which MMA fighter that's got a girly name? What, with the long blonde hair? Shirley Crabtree?
Trump's friend.
Dana White? Dana White? Oh my God,
I'll be taking him on because,
he would just absolutely... I mean, I think you might stand a chance against Andy Burnham and possibly, but Dana White will just destroy you, I'm afraid. And he doesn't fit in the category. It's got to be left-wingers who bring him in. It's got to be left-wingers who've belittled you.
I was cheating. I was picking one really weak with a girly name.
And we'll finish finally on a real strength, which is Trump. And I sent this to you today, and I'd like to read it out, if you don't mind, for our viewers. And it's day 14, and you were shocked. It's only 2 weeks that Trump's been in power. I am shocked. So, and this is a really good list, and it says day 14, Mexico caved. Panama caved, Colombia caved, Venezuela caved, Canada panicking, mass deportations, hostages at home, DEI programs ended, bureaucracy slashed, FBI purges underway, USAID funding cancelled, gender ideology eliminated, DOGE already saved billions, 51 intelligence agents lost clearance, border crossings dropped by 93%, and reservoirs filled up in California. And that's all true.
14 days!
14 days! That's what he's done in 14 days.
Shows what can be done with great determination and balls.
Yeah. Now, interestingly, I sent this to somebody, and then I was on a business Teams call with this person, and we were talking about that, and one of the people in the call then said, "Oh yeah, but you couldn't do that in England.
You couldn't do this in America 2 months ago."
Correct, yeah. Why can't you do it in England?
Because you can. Well, different system, but we would need a British version of that. We'd have different hoops to jump through.
Yeah.
We'd have to do it differently. But everything can be done with grit and determination.
Yeah.
Everything can be achieved.
Yeah.
The people who tell you it can't be done, just what they really mean is, I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I've got no idea how to do it, so
Correct.
therefore it can't be done.
Yeah.
My answer is, I've got no idea how we do it, but I know I know it can be done, and we'll find the answers, we'll find the solutions, we can get these things done.
Excellent. So you heard that here, viewers, for the first time. Please vote for Nick Buckley for President of England, and he'll get all this stuff done. Nick Buckley, MBE, thank you very much.
Thank you.